absolutely insane to me that they made the choice to put that in the trailer. Hello guys, I hope you're well and taking care of yourself however that looks for you. Welcome back to another video. Okay, so this is the video in the monthly series where I take you through every film I saw in the cinema last month. So this is currently February, and I know you're probably thinking, Sophie, you said you were going to release this video on the first Sunday of every month. And you, my little love, would be correct. I did say that, which makes this video late. I'm really sorry about that. If you guys follow me on my socials, you'll know I had to put my dog to sleep last week. So yeah, it's been a bit of a very shitty start to the month. So this video is late. But better late than never, we are going to go through every film that I saw in the cinema in February, which is 6 films. Less than last month, but still I think a decent amount. I feel like I'm still getting my money's worth of my Sydney World card. In February, I saw Saturday Night, Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, Companion, The Last Showgirl, Hard Truths, and The Substance. And I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about these films, so let's get straight into it. But before we do that, don't forget to like, subscribe if you're new here, comment below, let me know if you've seen any of these films and whether you enjoyed it. Tell me what film you didn't enjoy. I want to stir the pot a bit. And as always, I will keep these reviews spoiler free because the whole idea is that like you might want to go see them, so I don't want to ruin them for you. But if I am going to give a part of my review which is going to have a spoiler in it, I will let you know when the spoiler ends and when the spoiler starts. I'm good like that. In brackets, I learnt my lesson from people telling me I give too many spoilers. So let's get straight into it. First film I saw of the month was Saturday Night, and I really went to see this on a whim, ironically on a Friday night. I didn't have any plans, but I wanted to get out and I saw this new film at the cinema Saturday night. And it is, I don't know how factual it is. I don't know how true to events it is. It's one of those films where it's like inspired by true events, but I haven't done the research to find out how true it is because I actually don't care that much about the story. That's not why I went to go see the film. But the film is based off the events of how Saturday Night Live, the American TV show, came into production. And the film really grabbed my attention because we don't have like a Saturday Night Live like in the UK. We don't have an equivalent of that. And I think sometimes the skits are quite cringy, and then sometimes I think they're really funny, and they always have such good guests, and everything is so culturally relevant. It's such a pop culture moment every week. So to have this film, I thought, oh, snap that up, I'll be right in there. Also had an incredible cast, the first of which that comes to mind is Dylan O'Brien and bloody William Dafoe, he popped up. And there was also so many other amazing people in the cast. Rachel Sennett was one of them, she was in it, incredible performance. I think she is amazing. Like her transition to being somewhat internet famous to being a very mainstream celebrity and being in these very popular big budget movies is incredible. But the cast as a whole really did carry the whole film. I feel like everyone gave such a sensational performance. Everyone brought their own style of comedy or their own unique thing to the film. The other thing I really loved about it was just how tense it is. Because as I say, over in the UK, we don't have like a Saturday Night Live equivalent. But I do know it is a lot of work from a production standpoint. There is lots of quick changes, not a lot of time between the transition between skits and stuff like that. I know they're in rehearsals for like days and days, and it's like a lot of work. And I feel like the film really captured that stressful element that goes into Saturday Night Live, because I mean when the film starts, they're literally it's counting down to when the first ever episode is going live. So from the get-go, you're feeling the stress. My heart was going pitter-patter. I can't cope with the stress of that. And tell you, I could never do Saturday Night Live. Not like I think I would ever be asked, but putting it out now, too stressful for me, I can't do it. But every part of the film, from the script, the camera angles, the way that we follow the cast actually through the set, because there were some scenes which felt really long. I'm curious to say, I'm dubious. That's the word. Dubious to say they were one shot because I don't actually know that. But they were shot in a way which you really just felt like you were an assistant scurrying behind these people working on this big production, and you felt the stress and you felt the tension. But even though you felt that stress and you felt that tension, you also felt the joy and the passion that was going into this project and what they were trying to create. Because I mean, I don't want to obviously spoil the film, but let's just say it's only really the core people who are working on the program that really want it to succeed and really believe in it, and there's a lot of odds up against them getting it up and running and definitely fundamentally the world was against them, to it becoming the phenomenon that it is today. So even though it was really stressful and you feel that tension, and you feel that tension that goes into a live production, you also felt that joy and that comedy and that camaraderie, because I can't say that word. Let's spell it out with Sabrina. Camaraderie. You know what I mean. You felt that. It was really, really funny, shot really, really well, really, really incredible script, amazing actors, everyone gave a sensational performance. I really, really enjoyed this film. It's quite a while ago that I saw it, but I'm looking back and I've given it 4 stars. And yes, I would absolutely recommend it, particularly if you want to see Dylan O'Brien in a pair of hot pants, because that's the scene. The second film I saw in February was Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, which is the next and final instalment of the Bridget Jones series. Now, before going to see this, first of all, I feel like I should say this was a pre-screening invite from Universal. I have quite a good relationship with Universal. I was lucky enough to work with them last month on the release of The Wicked at home, which is just absolutely crazy. But they invited me to the pre-screening of the Bridget Jones movie about a week before it came out. But obviously this is not a paid review. This is just my honest thoughts. I went into this as someone who didn't have a very strong relationship to the original Bridget Jones movies. They're always one of those ones that were like on in the background when I was a kid, but I never really went out of my way to watch them like myself. So when I got the invite to this come over, I thought, right, I'm gonna watch at least the first 2 before I go, just to like refresh my memory, because the only scene that really stuck out in my mind, I remembered her underpants, and I remembered where they're singing Madonna in the Thai prison. So I was like, right, I need a bit more context before I go into this. And I'll be honest, watching back the first 2 films, there wasn't like much there story-wise, and I didn't really feel anything for the characters. Bridget and the 2 guys, Colin Firth and Hugh, I can't remember their names. One of them's Mr. Darcy, right? Yeah, Mr. Darcy is one she ends up marrying. I felt nothing towards them. They were literally just like, they could have been anyone on that screen. And I didn't think there was very much there plot-wise either. I thought it was just like a fun chick flick really of the noughties, wasn't it? So I'll be honest, that is what I thought this new one was gonna be like. But I was really, really pleasantly surprised. First of all, the new one is a lot longer. It's a lot more of a chunkier film, and it doesn't feel, tonally, it feels very, very different to the original Bridget Jones's. It doesn't feel like this, obviously Bridget Jones wasn't low budget, but you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like this little British film about this, you know, British girl. It feels like a bigger movie, and I feel like that comes through in the screen when you're watching it. And normally I wouldn't like that, but I do think it improved upon the series. And although it wasn't entirely about all of the characters involved, I do feel like Bridget and all of the side characters did have more personality, and they did have more for you to invest in. Now, one thing I was absolutely not expecting was it to be so fucking sad. It was so sad. I did not think I'd cry at this film, right? If you had told me, oh, I'm going to see a Bridget Jones movie, I'd be like, oh, great, a bit of fun. That'll be a fun, you know, Friday night film. I was crying my eyes out the whole way through. Now, this is not a spoiler because it is in the trailer. Mr. Darcy dies off screen before the film, and the film takes place, I think, maybe like 4 years, like a few years after his death, and she is basically getting to the point where she is like ready to start dating again. So I feel like they dealt with that really well, because I feel like if you was gonna have another Bridget Jones movie, we kind of needed her to be in a completely different point in her life and dealing with new issues, even though you've got similar themes there, like where she has like the 2 love interests. I felt like they did it in a way, this film, where it wasn't just completely retelling what happened in the first film. It didn't feel just repurposed, like a repurposed plot. And grief being such a central theme in the plot, I think it worked really well, even though it was surprising. Because at the end of the day, this is a film about love and romance, and grief is a fundamental part of love. Grief is love persevering. So it did make sense for me for grief be a central theme of the film, because the Bridget Jones films have historically been about love, and grief, I think you obviously can experience it at any point in your life, but I think as you get older and you move through those older phases of your life, you're naturally probably going to experience it more with the loss of a partner at a certain age and stuff like that. So it made sense at this point in her life that Bridget was dealing with that compartment of love. But as sad as it was, it did still have all of those humour elements to it. Also, casting Leo Woodall, best decision ever made by a casting director. That man is so fine. Oh, and I've completely forgiven him for his Essex accent in what was it, White Lotus. He was in that and he did an Essex accent. That was a bit triggering for me, I'll be honest. He just sounded like every boy I ever went to school with. But I've forgiven him for that because he's so fine. We're sitting in the cinema. I took my stepmom to the screening. It's lovely. And when he came on the film, I'm not joking, she genuinely went, "Who's that?" And obviously as well, with the original films being set in the 2000s, Bridget Jones historically has kind of got this bad rep and this bad press around it because of the way it talks about women's bodies, particularly Bridget's, which is crazy when you look back on it, because she was like, what, size 12, size 14? And they was acting like she was like plus size or, you know, whatever. So it does have that bad rep around it, and I felt like this film did deal with that better because, look, at the end of the day, the original Bridget Jones were a product of their time. And you can look back to any film from that era. Look at Love Actually and the way they talk about the press girl, the girl that the Prime Minister, also Hugh Grant, ends up with. And the way they like their fatphobic language towards her. So unfortunately, the original films are very much like a product of their time. But I felt like it dealt with it a lot better in this current film. And they even managed to still have a joke in there where Bridget is trying to alter her appearance. She's trying to appear more youthful, but it goes really wrong and she ends up with like a weird rash or something on her face. And the lesson is stop fucking with your appearance is basically what she gets. And I thought that was a really clever way of still having that kind of like humour in, and that kind of almost like, because it is a thing that women go through where we try to alter our appearance and we try all these things. It was a clever way of having that humour still be a part of the plot and still be a part of the movie, but it flips it on its head, and the message of it is stop fucking with your appearance. The only thing I would say, if I was going to give the film any criticism, is that it was a bit longer than I thought it was going to be, and I feel like the pacing maybe could have been done a bit better. Like, I feel like the final act of the film did feel a bit rushed, considering that was the resolve. Obviously I won't say what happened, but considering that was the resolve, I feel like that part of it did feel a little bit rough. Didn't completely ruin the film for me, but I remember thinking like I got so invested into one part of the story, because the story is kind of told in two parts. Like if you've seen it, like you'll understand, like you'll get, I think you'll get what I'm saying. I think I'm explaining it right. But I just felt like that final act and that final element to the story and the resolve did feel a little bit rushed. It didn't make it completely unbelievable, but I did just feel a little bit, I felt a little bit like, oh, I would have liked that to have been a little bit more fleshed out earlier on in the movie. But I thought it was a really fun movie. I thought it had a lot of really important big themes while also still being enjoyable and funny. And I love that song from the soundtrack. Oh, I'm showing you my bra there. I love that song from the soundtrack with Olivia Dean, where she's like, we could go back to the old place. That one. Love that song. Well, I was driving in the car the other day and I really felt like I was having my girly rom-com moment when I was listening to it. But if you're not sensitive to themes of death and grief, I definitely couldn't watch it now after losing Daisy. I'm glad I saw it before. Not sensitive to that. I think it's a really, really lovely film. I think it's really enjoyable. So would I recommend Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy? Yes, I would. And I've also given it 4 stars. Films are doing very well this month. Next film I saw was The Last Showgirl, featuring Pamela Anderson, who I was so excited to see on my screen. And I mean, I'll get more into it in a bit, but she's just absolutely perfect for this role. It truly was. And I'll be honest, the reason that I did go to see it was I love the Coppolas, Gia and Sophia Coppola. I do love them as directors, but mainly because I was so intrigued to see what Pamela Anderson did with this role. I have found her so interesting over the last few years, and being more talking more about being makeup free and talking about her experience within the industry and what she's been through, and just the way she looks at life now, I find so enriching to listening to her talk. So when this film came out, I was immediately, I need to go see it. And I actually went to go see it at a pre-screening through Cineworld, because when you're a Cineworld member, not an ad by the way, but hey, if you want to sponsor my cinema addiction, feel free to. When you're part of the like unlimited subscription member thing, obviously you get unlimited films a month, but you also get to go see certain films before they come out to the public, which is really, really cool. Like no extra cost, it's included in your membership, so the ticket's free. So I went to go see it early. First things, I'll start with my positives about the film. Shot absolutely beautifully, and as I'd expect nothing less from Gia Coppola. It is shot absolutely beautifully. It was shot on a really short time frame, and the screening I went to had an interview with Pamela Anderson after, and she actually said that it was all actually shot on film, which is crazy. And a really bold decision, especially to do it in such a short time frame, so that really does have to be commended. And I thought particularly the way the women were shot throughout the film, and the way the scenery in Las Vegas and the costume was shot throughout the film was so beautiful, and I really felt the love and passion that Pamela Anderson's character had for that industry and for that show. I really felt that through the way the film was shot. I also really love, because obviously it's a film about the Las Vegas showgirls, and that could so easily become sexualized or instantly become about the women's bodies. And obviously there is a part of that where that is a sort of part of the story, but I really loved how they didn't actually show you the showgirls you see them in full costume throughout the film, but you didn't see them in full costume performing the dance piece, the performance piece, the actual show, until the very end. I think it's like one of the final shots, and it's the final show. And I really appreciated the way that was done, because I really felt like you learnt more about these characters, and I really felt you learnt more about what that performance means to the characters and also to the culture of Las Vegas. Pamela Anderson, also brilliant, phenomenal, and she played it really well. And I really do feel like the way that her character in particular was written was done in such a good way, where she wasn't put on a pedestal as this, you know, angel. Because I feel like whenever we have women in films, they kind of either have to be like saints or evil, or like Madonna or whore, you know. And I felt like the way her character was written was, she was clearly very flawed and she made some bad decisions, but also you could see she was also a genuinely caring person. Now, my criticism for the film was, I feel like the plot just could have been fleshed out more. There could have been just a little bit more to it. I felt like there wasn't really a lot beyond how beautiful it looked and how incredible Pamela's performance was, and I really feel like Pamela had to carry that movie. Now, I still really enjoyed the film, don't get me wrong, but I just felt like there could have been more character work outside of Pamela, and I just feel like the story could have been fleshed out more, and it could have just given us something beyond the very short story that we saw. Because it's absolutely fine to have a film which is more about the style and the stylistic choice of the film and how it looks, but I do feel like this film was trying to convey more substance, and I do feel like it was trying to tell more of a story, and I just don't think it quite did that. I think all of the bones and all of the groundwork are there, but I just felt like it could have done a little bit more. One more positive thing to say, and Pamela said it in the interview that I saw about the film, was she mentioned, and I agree with her, about how it's really nice to have this story about these women, particularly in this profession, and it not be a sensationalized like murder story, or it be a story about the women and they hate each other. So I did really appreciate that when it comes to the story, and I feel like the story could have been fleshed out more without it becoming this sensationalized. But I still really enjoyed it, and I gave The Last Showgirl 3 stars. And would I recommend it? Yeah, I would recommend it, especially if you are a fan of the Coppola's style of directing, if you are a fan of just cinema shot so beautifully, and also if you are a fan of Pamela, you will probably love the film. The next film I saw was Companion, and this was my favourite film of the month. I absolutely loved Companion. I do have one major beef with the creators of this film. Actually, not even the creators, but the marketing department of this film. So before I get on to my thoughts on the film, I need to talk about this because I was so fucking pissed. I was so pissed. So right, let me give you the context of this film, right? So when this film was originally advertised, when I first saw the trailer to this film, and believe me, the little film geek I am, I saw the trailer to this pretty much like the day the trailer was released, right? I was the target audience. And in this trailer, it included an integral point to the plot. And I remember thinking at the time, is that meant to be in the trailer? And I'm gonna tell you what it is, so if you don't want to hear that, I will put a marker on the screen here and you can jump to this where I've finished talking about this point, right? But I'm going to tell you what it is. In the original trailer, it reveals that Iris, the main female lead, played by Sophie Thatcher, who is fantastic, by the way, I'm so in love with her. reveals that she is a robot. Excuse me, what? Revealed that in the trailer. And I remember, because it was when I went to go see Baby Girl, I saw that trailer for the first time, right? And I remember thinking, is that meant to be in the trailer? Because that feels like it's going to be a big plot reveal. And lo and behold, one of the main actors in the films, is it called Jack Quad? The guy who's from The Boys, him. He actually posted on his Instagram urging people who are really looking forward to the film or who want to see the film to not watch this trailer that they have posted. That is absolutely insane work. If your lead actor is having to post, hey, don't watch the trailer because I think it gives away an integral point to the film and your viewing experience will be better, that is insane too. And they did change the trailer, because when I went to go see another film, I think the week after, it was a new trailer. But it was too late for me by then. I'd already had that integral plot point revealed to me in the trailer. And when I did see the film, he was absolutely right. It didn't ruin the film experience for me. I still thought the film was so incredibly well done and I still really enjoyed it. But I remember when I found out that reveal, I remember thinking, right, when I go see this film, that better be revealed within the first 5 or 10 minutes. Otherwise, that is a spoiler. Lo and behold, when I get to the film, the point at which it is revealed, it is meant to be a gag. It is meant to be like a shocking reveal where you're like, because the signs are there all along where he's referring to her like she is a sex doll, a sex robot, which is what she is, right? The breadcrumbs are there, but it is not a reveal until maybe, like half an hour in. And it was absolutely insane to me that they made the choice to put that in the trailer. And I really just think this brings back a bigger problem with trailers these days, where they give away too much in the trailer. And it really, really annoys me, because it's not even just this film. The way films are currently marketed give way too much away in the trailer. When I'm watching a trailer, I just want to know who's in it, main sort of themes and plot of the film. I don't want any spoilers. I don't want any result. And then tell me when and where I need to have my ass sat down for viewing. I think especially for your main trailer, right? Because if you want to do more promo work, you can do that outside of the main trailer for audiences that maybe need a little bit more coaxing, because that's not unusual to have different trailers for one movie. And other than that, I thought the film was so incredibly well done. I'll start by talking about the performances. I mean, Sophie Factor just stole the show. She really does. I love her in Yellow Jackets. That's where I first discovered her, but I've seen her in other stuff since. I saw her in Heretic last year, it would have been, yeah, last year. She was just incredible, and she's so she's got such a, like, her style of acting is so incredibly well placed in horror, and I really hope she does more horror. But also as well, I've got to give my props to Jack Quad, and I really don't know if I'm saying his name right. That's how I've always said it. Let me know if that's wrong. But I've really got to give him his flowers on this, because his performance was absolutely stellar. And the central theme of the film, right, is about women and how women are perceived and used and discarded by men in society and by society as a whole. And I feel like what made this film so incredibly strong and powerful is that this Jack guy wasn't Jack, I don't know the character's name, that's the actor's name, but Jack's character was not some incel. He wasn't some outright misogynist that we would be able to recognise in real life. He was, quote unquote, a nice guy. He looked like a very average Joe that we might have part of our friend group, you know, that we might be neighbours with, that might be our brothers. And yet he was still part of the system, and he was still contributing to this industry that basically saw women as objects and disposed of them like objects. And I really, really loved how his performance progressed throughout the film, and how that misogyny started to come more and more to the surface. Because at the start of the film, and even about midway through, this nice guy act is holding up, and you might even want to, like we do with men in real life, give him the benefit of the doubt and find excuses for his behaviour. But it doesn't change the fact that, yeah, he might have been a quote-unquote nice guy. By the end of the film, he is absolutely fucking terrifying. Like, obviously I won't say what happens, but one of the final scenes in the film, his performance terrified me. He really did. And there's one particular line that I just felt really, really chilling, where they're having that physical altercation, and he knows he's got physical power and physical dominance over her, and that's what he likes. And he says something along the lines of, when she's got like a weapon to him or something, it doesn't matter if I can't physically control you, because he doesn't need to. And I thought that was so chilling, because it was such a good representation of what emotional abuse does to women, and the impact that emotional abuse has on women, and how these abusers know that they don't physically have to control our actions. Through manipulation and through withholding of love and affection, they are still able to physically control you. And I found that so chilling, and I thought that was such an incredible line. And even though obviously the film is about this fictional product, it does say much about the way society in general treats women, and the way society also disposes and objectifies women. But it also does so much, and it says so much specifically about the way men see their girlfriends and their partners. And there was one particular shot that I really loved. This is, I think I'm getting into spoiler territory now, so I'm going to put a timestamp on the screen where you can skip to where I give my final thoughts on the movie and my ranking. But there is one shot that I really love, where you have the female of the friend group, and after she's accidentally been killed, there's this one particular shot where they prop up her body alongside the sex companion robot. Absolutely love that shot, because in that one shot it says so much about how it doesn't matter whether you are a real life living breathing flesh and blood woman, or whether you are a sex robot. These men think of you the same way, they see you the same way. And I thought to be able to convey that all in that one shot, the men see you that way and they are going to dispose of you in the same way. It doesn't matter that one of the girls was flesh and blood and one of the girls was the robots. Either way, both of them have become the victim of male violence, and both of them were going to get disposed of in the same way. And I think to convey all of that in that one shot. I also thought it was really interesting that there was a gay couple within the movie, who one of them was also a sex companion robot. And I thought it was really interesting how they conveyed that obviously this is still a power play, and this is still control in some way, but how the relationship was different, and how the way that he looked at his sex companion robot was completely different to the way that Jack's character saw the female sex companion robot. And that dynamic only became even more interesting later on in the movie, where Jack's character takes over the male sex robot. And when he does, he uses him as a vessel for his aggression. He uses him as a vessel for his violence. So when this male sex robot had been a part of the gay relationship, it would look a fairly loving relationship. Even when the robot was offline, and the way that his partner was talking about him, it felt different to the relationship that Jack and Sophie's characters had. But when Jack's character, the straight man, got a hold of him, he just became another tool of his aggression and his power. As you can probably tell, I absolutely loved this film. I thought it was so incredibly well done, and I really appreciated how it managed to say so much. And this is maybe what I mean about my criticism of The Last Showgirl not expanding upon the plot points and the story more. I think Companion was able to say so much and make so many valid critiques of our society, and about misogyny and about the patriarchy, and also as well about how is the progress in technology going to impact women, because that is already such a topical discussion within our society. I remember being absolutely terrified last year when, we saw it happen to one of the most famous women on the planet, when that AI image was made of Taylor Swift being essayed and groped at the football game. So there are lots of conversations that are happening right now about how is this progress in technology with AI, and also how is that going to impact real life men who now get to live out these fantasies. And it managed to convey so much about those very topical points, while also still being engaging and entertaining. Because sometimes you're watching a film and you just think oh, it's making a point. This film was still entertaining. It was still a good, I would say, psychological horror. I wouldn't say fun to watch, because as a woman I was sat there oh fuck. But it was still an engaging film, and I still really enjoyed watching it. Performances were incredible. Loved the wardrobe. Sophie's wardrobe throughout this, I mean, it helped to extend the points that the film was making, because I mean, I really liked her wardrobe and her styling, but also it was an extension of the points it was making about the patriarchy and about Jack's control over Sophie and her image and the way she was dressed in a more, I would say, traditional and like vintage way. I think it was very clearly referencing a more trad wife style. Really love this film. I would absolutely recommend that you see it. If you have managed to avoid spoilers in the trailer so far, please go into it blind. I think that just makes it even more incredible. But even if you do know this thing that is revealed in the trailer that really pissed me off, even if you do know that, I would still go ahead and watch it. It is really incredible. And if Dan is watching this video, please watch it with me. Dan has this really bad habit, and I think it's a bad habit, he's gonna laugh at this, of not watching a film but watching someone watch it on YouTube and watching them react to it. Just come to the cinema with me, bro. I gave it 5 stars and I think it deserved every single one of them. The next film that I saw this month was Hard Truths. Now this was a film that when I saw, I don't think it was the trailer, I think it was the poster, and then I saw the trailer, I remember thinking, oh, I really need to make sure I go see that, because it just looked really interesting and unlike anything else that I have seen come out in recent years. First thing I noticed about the film is it is the first film, or even like maybe even any piece of media that I've seen in such a long time, where the cast is maybe like 99% black, but the project is not about slavery and the project isn't about some kind of black historical trauma, because I feel like that's such a trope, isn't it, right? That where obviously like black stories aren't really told as much on screen and through our media, and then when they are, when black actors do get roles, it's usually tied to slavery. The general premise itself is very simple. You've got your main character, who is played by, is it Marie Jean-Baptiste? She plays a character called Pansy. Now I'll just say, first at the bat, her performance carried the cast on this film. She was so incredible. Her performance had me, at some points it had me cringing, it had me embarrassed, then it had me really sad for her, it had me angry at her, and then sometimes I just found her really fucking funny. The general premise of this film is Marianne's character is just an angry woman who is unhappy in her life, and you can tell that some stuff has happened. She's clearly been through some stuff, and she's not happy with her life, and she is taking it out on everyone around her, from her husband, her son, people she meets in the car park or at the shop, or she's very unhappy in life, and she's taking it out on everyone around her. What I found so powerful about this is the story is so simple, but I do feel like each and every one of us at least know someone like that, right? It doesn't specifically reference COVID, but they do reference lockdown and people feeling anxious coming out of lockdown, and it makes reference to the impact that lockdown has had on people. And I even saw a tweet today, right, and it was showing some of the weird things that we had to do in lockdown that became our norm, like queuing outside the supermarket and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And I do find it crazy that we as a whole society went through all of those absolutely batshit insane things and we just never speak about them anymore. And I do feel like in a few years' time we are going to start to see the impact of people going through that stuff, because that is insane to go through, and we've all just carried on like none of it happened. But it has impacted all of us, and this film does touch on that without having to really bring up COVID, because I feel like people hate when COVID is mentioned in a piece of media. So I feel like it does that well. But I feel like all of us at some point in our life have known someone like that who is just so angry and bitter at the world. And one of the lines in the movie where it gets to like the really sort of tense breaking point, because you can feel the tension boiling up in this woman's life. And sometimes I would sit there, I hate confrontation, right? I hate tension, because I was just sitting there like, I can't take. I'm a very anxious person. Like, I grew up in a very tense household, so people being tense and aggression slowly building makes me very anxious, and I felt that watching the film. Obviously not a nice feeling, but it means the film is very well done, acted so brilliantly, done so well done. And there's even a line in the film where her sister says to her, "What are you so angry about?" And that is what the whole film was about, is about this woman having to really look at herself and say, why am I so angry, and actually have that conversation and reconcile with those feelings. And obviously I won't give away the ending or whatever, but I think the film made a very, very bold choice to not give the film and its characters a very bold, clear-cut, happy ending. I felt sad leaving that cinema. Not in a, oh, I didn't enjoy that film, it was too sad, it, you know, kind of way. I really enjoyed the film, I thought, and it was done so well that it made me sad. And I felt sad leaving the cinema because the film didn't get its resolve. The character didn't get its resolve that it deserves. Now, the way it ends, it could very well, I think it's implied that, you know, progression happens off screen or whatever, but I thought the film ending at that point and where tensions are still so high, I thought was a really bold decision to make. I thought it made the film feel a lot more grounded in reality. I think it made the characters feel more realistic, and it kind of got conveyed across this sense of realism that the rest of the film did as well, which is that sometimes life is quite ugly and we have to deal with those ugly parts of ourselves and those ugly parts of our life in order to move forward and progress. But it's been a very long time since I've left a film and I felt that real deep sadness. I came home and I had to listen to Pitbull. Not like I need any excuse to listen to Pitbull. I love the man, but I thought, oh my God, it really did left me with quite a few feelings, and I was still thinking about that main character for a while afterwards. Now, my only criticism of the film, if I was to give it criticism, would be that I thought some of the supporting characters weren't strong actors. Now, I don't think I've ever given that criticism to anyone, but there were just a few characters that I thought, side characters, where I thought the acting just wasn't strong, and it was very much given like Hollyoaks. Like, that's made my day, that. You get what I mean? But I think it made up for it by the fact that the lead was so sensational. And I'll be honest, I think she deserved a BAFTA. And I would recommend it, especially if you want a film which deals with the hard truths. God, that was bad. If you want a film that deals with those ugly parts of life and deals with those themes, and actually might be a bit of an uncomfortable watch, but you come away better for it, I would absolutely recommend this film. And I gave this film a 3.5 stars. Now, the final film I saw this month, now I actually saw this film last year, but as I said earlier in the video, Dan has a little problem where he doesn't go to the cinema and he watches someone watch a film on the screen. He did it with this film. This film was The Substance. One of my top 3 films of last year. Absolutely loved it the first time I saw it last year. Now, when it came out originally, it did not get a proper rollout at the cinema. I don't even think it was showing at my Cineworld. At least if it did, it would have been like one showing very, very late at night, because, let's be honest, I'm very flexible when it comes to the cinema. I will sometimes, like that film Hard Truths that we were just talking about, I went to go see that at 1 PM on a random Thursday. I'll be honest, sometimes I will just drop everything to go to the cinema, and that's a high point of being self-employed. Sometimes I might work till 5 AM, but sometimes I can drop everything and go to cinema at 1 PM. When this film came out, I had to go to an Everyman to see it, and it didn't get a proper rollout that it deserved. But because of Oscar season, they have put a load of the Best Picture and the big films of the award seasons back up at the cinema. And it was really, really interesting actually watching it again for the second time, knowing the plot, because I feel like the plot is crazy, right? So I was able to, because the plot is so crazy, the first time I was watching it, of course I picked up on the central themes of, you know, beauty standards and women's body and ageing and the way women treat each other, especially when we start to age. Of course I picked up on all of that, but it was really nice to be able to pay more attention to those themes and the smaller details of the film this time, because I wasn't so distracted by the plot. And guys, I absolutely love this film, if you haven't guessed. I love all of the central themes that it deals with. I think it is shot so incredibly well. I'm sometimes cannot be a fan of body horror, and that's just because I have like body trauma, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, that there were certain scenes in this film where I did have to look away because it's very spinal focused, and I have a spinal injury. So there are certain scenes where, like, when her spine ripped open, that was a bit much for me personally, but that's because I specifically have shit around that. But I thought it was done so well. The performances, absolutely incredible. I just cannot believe Margaret Qualley, is it Qualley? Margaret Qualley, was not nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars. Like, she was just so phenomenal. And I think, to be honest, I can't say that. I was going to say she deserved it more than Mickey Madison for Anora, but I've not seen Anora yet, so that would be unfair for me to say. But I do think Demi Moore really deserved it for this role. It really was the role of a lifetime, and what she was able to bring to this role was so sensational. I truly hope she gets more weird and wicked and wonderful scripts come across her desk in the next few years, because she was brilliant. Talking about how the film was shot as well, one of my favourite shots, obviously it's body horror, right? But I thought one of the most disgusting shots in the film, it's done so well, was the scene where the big TV boss is eating the prawns at the table, and you've got the zoom in on the prawns, you've got the zoom in on his dirty fingers and the way he's eating. And I thought, first of all, amazingly shot, and I love the close-up shot, but more than that, I loved what it did to portray this message of the way men consume and the disgust of it all, just how grotesque it is, and the lack of care and the messiness at which they consume. Because yes, in this shot he is consuming prawns, but it says a lot about the way that men consume media and the way men consume women. Because while he is consuming these prawns in such a disgusting, grotesque way, he is essentially ending a woman's career and firing a woman. It's, you know, probably one of the worst things this character is going through. She's losing her job because she's aging. She's experiencing a grotesque form of misogyny and ageism. And this man is just gorging in front of her, consuming these prawns in such a vile way. I also really loved, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet, the opening shot of the Hollywood star. I thought that was so clever. And I think it's like very self-explanatory, but I loved it. I thought it was a really good way to open the film, and I love that it got referred back to at the end. I really liked that. I appreciated that. My favourite line delivery in the film, Margaret Qualley going, "Control yourself!" For that alone, she deserved Best Supporting Actress. And I could be here all day talking about the themes of this movie and the themes to it and what it said about society and women and misogyny and ageism in particular is my favourite thing about it. It is also just very entertaining, but the themes are what I love the movie for. But if I was just going to pick one point to talk about, is I loved how the film kept making a point of saying you are one. Even though they thought of themselves as being two separate people, that was Elizabeth. All of that, even though they're Elizabeth Sue and then Monstro El Sue, it is one person. And I think that does such a good job of conveying the way that young women look at older women. Because I do feel like, and I actually know from my experience of being a younger woman and now as a woman coming into my late 20s and seeing the way women even younger than me talk about their being in their 30s, 40s, 50s and then older, they talk about it with this kind of like disdain, like they will never age. I'm not saying this is obviously every young woman ever, but a generalisation of young women throughout society is they talk about older women like they'll never age, like it's never going to be them. And so I thought to have this point where they are the same person was so powerful, and it did so much to convey that way that women look at each other, particularly the way younger women look at older women. And then in the same breath as well, you have got some older women who look at younger women with such disdain and such disgust because of what they've been put through with ageism and misogyny. They look at younger women sometimes with such vitriol because yes, obviously the patriarchy is maintained and it is spouted by men, but also women, as well as being victims of the patriarchy, we can also uphold it. And one of the ways that we uphold the patriarchy every day is by the way that we look and talk about ourselves, but also the way we look and talk about other women around us. And I think when you get that scene where she tries to terminate the young one, Sue, and it accidentally ends up creating the two of them conscious and alive at the same time. And the air in the cinema watching that for me is so tense because you have this moment where you have these two women who are the same person, but they have put each other through so much, and you have this moment where they're finally face to face, awake, looking at each other. And it just turns into a fucking smackdown. And I honestly, Sue, the younger one, in that moment, in that scene, terrified me. And I think Margaret Qualley did such a good job of performing and conveying that rage and that anger and that passion that young women have, and all of that rage inside you of not only misogyny and what you have been put through and what you experience on a daily basis, but fear of growing older. And I do feel like sometimes the vitriol that some young women have towards older women comes from a place of fear. So now Sue is looking at this version, and if it's herself, and she knows it's herself deep down, even though she might not admit it, and vice versa, she's looking at this version of herself, and she's got so much rage. She's got so much rage and anger inside her because she knows that will be her one day. And instead of dealing with those feelings that the patriarchy and the misogyny has instilled in her, and instead of dealing with that disgust and that rage, she looks at herself and she just crashes out and she beats the shit out of Elizabeth. I mean, she literally kills her. And I think it just says so much about the way the patriarchy makes young women feel that they would rather kill that part of themselves than to be able to stand there and look their older selves and this part of themselves in the eye and deal with all of that rage and all of that feeling and the prospect of becoming that person. Another part of the movie that I really loved is the part where Elizabeth is getting ready to go on a date, and I'll tell you why I really love this part is because it wasn't to do with the supernatural or body horror element of the movie. It was a scene in the film which every single woman I think has been through. Substance or no substance, every woman has been at that point where they have been getting ready to go out and they're looking in the mirror, and every single time they look, they find something else that makes them not want to step outside that door, that makes them not want to be seen by another human being. You stand in front of the mirror and you pick apart your face and you try and add more makeup, you try and take something off, you change your outfit, you change your shoes, you brush your hair through, put dry shampoo in, you do so much, but every time you look there is a new flaw to pull apart, and it feels like from every angle you see yourself, whether that is in the mirror, when she sees herself in the door handle as well, whether it's in the kettle, whether it's in the car window, every time you see yourself it feels like your perception of yourself is getting more and more warped, and you feel that it's really hard to talk about because I know I've definitely been through it, and I know so many women who have been through it, and it just reminds me of, even, you know, as a young woman and even younger than what I am now, seeing friends, girlfriends getting ready to go out and going on nights out, and sometimes them not even going because they just can't reconcile with how they look, and they feel it makes them feel such a type of way that they would rather miss out on this memory. And that's what happens in the film. Obviously, she misses out on this date with what seems like a really, really nice guy, actually. And you wouldn't catch me saying that lightly. But she misses out on that because she just has this idea that, you know, she is not as good as Sue. But there are so many other points I love from it. I'll be honest, I could do a whole fucking video essay just on the substance, but we'd be here all day. So if you want that, let me know and I'll do it. But there are so many elements of this movie that I love that I think get across the themes. I know there were some people who criticised, particularly the last maybe 20 minutes or so. I didn't have a problem with it because I felt like, I said to Dan, I thought the film was done so well and it dealt with the themes so well, I can suspend my disbelief for the elements that weren't realistic. I wasn't watching this film for the realism of it. I wanted it to be a bit over the top, a bit campy, to be honest with you, a bit exaggerated, because I'll be honest with you, the themes that we're dealing with, that's kind of how sometimes it feels to experience them in real life. That's not how it looks to an outsider, but sometimes it feels that big and that monstrous and that dramatic in your head. So yeah, I know that was quite divisive the last 20 minutes or so, but I could suspend my disbelief for it because I just loved the film as a whole so much, and I thought the films were dealt with so well. Would I recommend The Substance? Absolutely, fuck yes. If you've not seen it already, what the fuck are you doing, babes? Go see it. It's so fucking good. I give this film 5 stars. And that is every film I saw in the cinema in February 2025. Don't know if you guys have seen these films as well. Maybe you've seen some of them, maybe you've seen none of them, and maybe this was helping you decide what you want to go see. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what films you enjoyed, what films you didn't enjoy. And if you did like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also press the notification bell, because that means that you'll never miss a video from me. Because just because you're subscribed doesn't mean you get a notification that I've posted. And I do be posting more this year. I'm showing up and showing out. That's my New Year's resolution, is to be more present on YouTube. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!